Dust boiled behind the wagon wheels as the lone rider pulled to a halt at the split fence line. The posts leaned like drunks in a windstorm, wires sagging low enough that coyotes could stroll through without crouching. The land stretched bare and blistered to the horizon, grass burned down to pale stubble, sky so wide and merciless it pressed on a man's chest like iron. The house sat ahead, grayed and peeling, roof bent under years of desert sun. Each board moaned when the wind pushed across it, a sound like a tired throat clearing. No smoke rose from the chimney. No dogs barked, yet the air carried the faint tang of wood smoke, and the ground bore tracks too heavy to be cattle. The rider swung down. His boots sank into powder-dry soil. Leather creaked as he tied the reins, the horse blowing hard through its nose, uneasy already. He paused, listening. A hawk wheeled overhead, crying sharp, and the echo fell flat against the plain. Then he saw her. She stood in the doorway of the house, shoulders broad as the frame itself, hair black and tangled, eyes shadowed in the dim. The boards seemed to shrink around her height. Her voice carried like a low drum. "You'll not ride past. This land's not empty." Before he could answer, two more shapes emerged, one stepping off the porch with deliberate weight, the other circling the barn like a watchful wolf. Each of them loomed tall, hands dark with earth, arms knotted with labor. Giants, the townsfolk had whispered. Out here, he saw the truth of it. Women built out of raw land and survival, not rumor. The horse tossed its head, shying back. He steadied the reins, throat dry. "I bought this ranch." A silence opened, wide and still as the desert around them. Then the one at the doorway laughed, a short, sharp thing without mirth. "Bought," she said. "Paper means nothing here. Men with papers tried before. None stayed." The second woman moved closer, boots thudding against the dry-packed earth. She was broader still, jaw square, eyes cold as creek stone. Her hand rested on the post of the porch as if testing its strength. "You'll stay," she said flatly. "You'll work." The third, circling behind, spoke at last. Her tone was softer, a whisper beneath the wind. "And you'll answer to us." The rider stood caught in their gaze, three pairs of eyes holding him like nails pinning leather. He tasted grit on his tongue, heard the dry rattle of a snake in the brush. The house loomed larger the longer he stared at it. Windows gaped empty, curtains shredded to threads. The barn door swayed once and shut itself with a hollow bang. A crow perched on the rail, head tilting, black eyes sharp. He stepped forward, boots crunching. "If you mean to drive me off, say it plain." The woman at the doorway shook her head slow. "If I meant to drive you off, you'd already be dust. You stay, stranger. You live by our way." The wind shifted, carrying with it the faint clatter of chains from somewhere deep in the barn. The sound died quickly, as though swallowed. He felt the weight of his revolver at his side. His hand twitched once, but he did not touch it. Their eyes followed the motion anyway, and the laughter returned, this time from the second woman, deeper, rolling like thunder, just beyond sight. "No need for iron," she said. "Not yet." The rider's horse stamped, ears pinned back. He turned his head, saw the horizon line swallowed by the reddening sky. The sun crouched low, swollen, spilling its last fire across the land. Shadows of the three women stretched long over the dirt, dark fingers that seemed to reach for him. He drew a slow breath. The boards of the house creaked as if sighing. Far off, coyotes began to call. One, then another, until the plain quivered with their hunger. Still, the three did not move. They stood like stones, watching, measuring. He shifted the weight of his satchel across his shoulder, leather strap cutting deep. His boots carried him 2 steps closer before he stopped again, caught by the sharp smell of smoke. The earth beneath the porch carried black stains, as if fires had been built there not long ago. The woman in the doorway spoke once more, quieter this time, though no less certain. "The land keeps what belongs to it. Remember that, before you dream of leaving." Behind her, the dark hall yawned, full of silence. The rider swallowed hard. The wind lifted his coat, tugged it like unseen hands. Dust stung his eyes, blurred the shape of the house until it seemed to waver between ruin and fortress. He said nothing. The women did not smile. Above, the hawk wheeled once more, its shadow slicing across them all. Then the sun slid behind the ridge, and the sky bled into dusk. The land fell into silence, and with it the promise that nothing here was as it seemed. The lantern guttered in the window, flames struggling against the draft that hissed through the broken seams of the house. He pushed the door wider with his shoulder, arms aching from hauling water up from the dry well. The bucket clanged against the boards, sloshing what little remained. His boots left a dark trail across the warped floorboards. From the far corner came the scrape of a chair. One of them, broadest of the three, rose without speaking, lifted the pail as though it weighed no more than a tin cup, and poured it into a clay basin. The water hissed on contact, dust rising from the vessel's walls. She did not look at him, only muttered, "More tomorrow." He wiped his brow, but the sweat kept crawling down his back. Every task seemed doubled here. Soil mean, tools rusted, sun cruel. The women worked without complaint, backs bent from dawn to night. Yet each motion carried a grim rhythm, as if they had done the same for centuries. From a barn came a sound, low, metallic, dragging. He froze. The second woman slipped past him, lantern in hand. Her shadow swelled huge across the wall, arms stretching as though to seize him. She did not speak. Boots thudded heavy on the porch, fading toward the barn. The door groaned open, then slammed shut. Silence followed, thick and absolute. He poured himself onto the nearest chair. The wood creaked under his weight, though it had borne the giant woman without protest. He reached for the flask in his coat pocket, but the third woman's eyes were already on him from across the room, dark, wet with something like sorrow. "No spirits here," she said softly. Her voice slipped through him like cold water. He put the flask away. The fire in the hearth cracked, sparks leaping. Beyond the walls, thunder muttered low across the plains. He could smell rain in the distance, though it had not touched this ground in months. The door swung open hard. The second woman entered again, lantern dark, jaw set. "Nothing," she said, "but it stirs." The first woman glanced at him then, sharp as a nail hammered through wood. "You'll rise before light. We mend fence." He nodded once. Sleep came uneasy. The house moaned around him, rafters twisting like bones. Coyotes howled, closer than before. His dreams stank of smoke and ash. He woke with dirt under his nails and the taste of iron in his mouth. The sun had not yet clawed over the ridge, yet the women were already outside, hammering posts, hauling rails thicker than he could lift alone. He dragged himself into the dust, throat raw, and set to work beside them. Each strike of the mallet rattled through his skull. Each wire drawn tight cut his hands raw. Yet still the women worked faster, longer, as though their flesh were carved from stone. When noon came, the herd was missing 3 head. Tracks led nowhere, vanished in the dirt as if the cattle had lifted into the sky. The broad woman spat into the dust. Again, he crouched, searching. The soil bore strange impressions, deep grooves, wide as a shovel blade, then gone. He touched the mark, finding the earth still warm. That night, storms rolled in. Lightning crawled across the sky in jagged veins, thunder splitting the air. Rain struck in sheets, pounding the roof, seeping through cracks to drip cold onto his bedroll. He sat upright at the sound of voices. Through the wall he heard them, low, urgent. The 3 women, speaking in tones like prayer or curse. He pressed close, ear to the wood. The ground remembers. It wakes when strangers come. We keep it buried. The words tangled with the rain, carried off in gusts of wind. The fire guttered, nearly dead. He rose, lantern in hand, and crossed the warped floor. Outside, the storm howled, rattling shutters like fists. He stepped in the hall, dark, dripping, and pushed the back door wide. The barn loomed, its roof a jagged line against the lightning. Shadows raced across the yard. The wind drove rain like nails into his skin. He stepped closer. The barn door shuttered. Inside, something shifted, heavy, dragging iron across stone. He reached for the latch. His hand shook. A voice cut through the storm behind him. Leave it. The tallest woman stood at his shoulder, rain streaming from her hair, face half hidden in shadow. Her eyes glowed, faint in the lightning. She did not touch him, but the command pinned him like a blade at his throat. He lowered his hand. The barn groaned once more, then fell still. Together, they stood in the rain until the thunder rolled westward and the storm broke apart. Morning came gray and heavy. The air stank of wet earth. The herd was silent, huddled tight at the far fence. He walked among them, counting. No new loss, though their eyes rolled white, skittish. The third woman approached, quieter than the others, voice thin as smoke. Do not fear what you hear at night. He turned to her, rain dripping from his hat brim. And if I do? She looked past him, toward the barn, face unreadable. Then you won't last. The sun pushed through at last, blinding, cruel. Shadows shrank, yet the secrets of the ranch only grew larger. The knock rattled the door like a rifle, but striking wood. He rose from the table slow, hand brushing the revolver at his hip. The women didn't move. They sat in silence, shadows tall against the walls, eyes fixed on the door as if they'd been waiting. Another strike came, harder, sharper. Rain from last night still clung to the earth, and boot steps squelched in the yard. He swung the door wide. The marshal stood there, hat low, mustache bristling, a scatter of men behind him. Rifles glinted in the gray light. Horses stamped, restless, iron shoes churning mud. This place ain't yours, the marshal said flat. Not theirs neither. Land's too rich for squatters. The women rose as one. Boards groaned beneath their weight. The tallest stepped forward, arms crossed. We work it. We keep it. The marshal's eyes narrowed. You keep something all right. Folks whisper of it in town. Gold, maybe. Guns. Either way, it don't belong to you. The posse murmured agreement, hands tightening on rifle stocks. The rider felt the weight of their stares shift to him. Stranger, caught in the middle. Paper deed useless as ash. His throat burned dry. We'll give till sundown, the marshal said. Be gone, or be buried. They turned, boots sucking from the mud, horses lurching into motion. The sound of hooves rolled like distant thunder until only silence clung to the yard again. Inside, the air thickened. The fire snapped once, then sank low. The broad woman slammed her palm against the table, with splintering under the blow. It begins again, she growled. The softer one whispered, they'll come with fire. The rider finally spoke, voice hoarse. What is it you're keeping? The three exchanged looks, shadows passing between them, heavy as storm clouds. At last the tallest drew a breath. You'll see. They led him into the storm-wrecked yard, across slick earth toward the barn. The doors yawned wide at their shove, hinges screaming. Inside lay darkness deep enough to choke. The lantern flared, casting weak light. Shapes glimmered beneath tarps, long, heavy, unnatural. One cloth pulled back revealed iron. Rifles, bayonets, rusted but real, stacked in crates stamped with the eagle crest of a forgotten army. He stepped closer, fingers brushing the edge of a crate. The wood was scarred, initials carved deep. Dates. The war still burned in the grain. The tallest woman's voice rumbled low. Buried here since blood washed this land. Men came for them once. We sent them away. They never rose again. The broad one spoke sharper, and we swore none would take it. Not gold, not guns, not the flag. From the darkest corner, she drew out a bundle wrapped in oilskin. She cast it onto the dirt floor, cloth falling open to reveal faded colors. Red, white, blue, streaked black with age. A flag, edges torn, stars dull by dust. The rider's breath caught. This land remembers, the sorrowful one whispered. Her hand brushed the fabric with a tenderness that looked almost like grief. It remembers the killing. It keeps it. We are only its hands. Thunder cracked outside. He flinched, but no storm brewed in the sky. It was the rumble of hooves, distant but closing. The tallest woman's eyes sharpened. They come sooner than sundown. He turned to the barn doors. Dust already rose on the ridge, a black smudge across the pale horizon. Riders. A line of them, rifles slung, torches ready. The women stood taller, casting shadows that filled the barn like pillars. Their eyes burned in the lantern light. "You've seen," the broad one said. "Now choose." The rider's hand closed around the revolver at his side. His past roared back, blood on his hands, fire in his memory, faces he could not forget. He had come west to bury it, to hide in silence. But the land had dragged it out again. His voice came low, steady, harder than he remembered it. "I'll stand." The women did not smile, but something in their faces shifted, sharp edges softening. The sorrowful one stepped closer, resting her hand heavy on his shoulder. "Then you are not alone." Outside, the dust grew thicker, blackening the horizon. The sound of hooves beat louder, faster, until the very ground trembled beneath it. Inside the barn, lantern light flickered over iron and wood, over torn flag and shadowed faces. The legend had risen from the dirt, and the reckoning rode toward them. Torches flared against the dusk, flames whipping sideways in the wind as the posse thundered down the ridge. Dust churned beneath their horses, a black wave rolling fast across the plain. Rifles gleamed in the dying sun. Inside the yard, the women took their places, one at the porch, one by the barn, one standing in the field with a hammer gripped like a war club. Their shadows stretched long and crooked, cutting through the dirt. The rider stood among them, revolver drawn, coat flapping in the hot wind. The first rifle cracked. A bullet split the porch rail, splinters stinging his face. He ducked low, breath burning in his chest. The tallest woman did not flinch. She stepped forward into the open, voice booming. "This land keeps what belongs to it." Her cry rolled like thunder. For a heartbeat, the charging men faltered. Then the marshal shouted, "Burn them out!" The riders split wide, circling, torches blazing. Heat licked the air, smoke stinging the back of his throat. The broad woman heaved a rail from the broken fence, swinging it with a roar. Horsemen scattered as wood smashed into the ground, throwing up dust. Another rifle fired. The sorrowful one seized the fallen torch, drove its flames straight into the rider's path. The horse reared, eyes white, throwing its master hard into the dust. The rider raised his revolver. He squeezed. The crack tore through the yard, one man pitching backward, rifle tumbling from his grasp. He felt the old rhythm return, steady hands, cold breath, iron certainty. His past surged in his blood. The posse poured fire toward the barn. Flames caught dry hay, leaping high, sparks swarming the night. Smoke roared up, black and choking. The broad woman bellowed, seized a barrel, and hurled it into the blaze. Water burst, steam shrieking, fire smothered for a breath before catching again. Through the haze came the marshal, riding hard, pistol raised. His voice carried. "End it now." The rider met his gaze. Time slowed. He saw the man's eyes gleam with greed, saw the reflection of flames dancing in them. He leveled his revolver. But before he could fire, the tallest woman moved first. She strode forward, impossibly tall against the smoke, flag clutched in her fist. The torn stars and stripes snapped in the wind, blackened edges glowing red in the torchlight. The posse froze. The flag blazed like a ghost of the war, memory rising from the dirt. The rider's voice rang out, cold and cutting. "This is sacred ground." He fired. The marshal tumbled from the saddle, pistol spinning into the dust. Silence split the chaos. For a breath, no one moved. Then the women roared together, voices joined, shaking the night. They surged as one, hammer, torch, and rail striking with thunderous force. Horses shrieked, men scattered, rifles clattered to the ground. Flames licked high, but fear burned hotter in the posse's eyes. One by one they broke. Some fled on horseback, spurring hard into the dark. Others stumbled on foot, swallowed by dust and smoke. The yard fell quiet but for the crackle of fire. The rider stood still, chest heaving, revolver heavy in his grip. The three women gathered close, their shadows stretching long and eternal across the churned earth. The torn flag fluttered once, then sagged against the tallest woman's shoulder. Ash drifted down, soft as snow. The broad woman spat into the dirt. They won't return. The sorrowful one closed her eyes, voice faint. The land has claimed them. The rider lowered his revolver at last. Smoke curled from the barrel, twisting into the dark like a spirit rising. The old boards of the house groaned. The barn still smoldered, but the ranch stood. Against fire, against iron, against time, the women turned to him. For the first time, their faces softened, not fierce, not grim, but weary, almost human. "You've stood with us," the tallest said. "Now you belong to the land too." He said nothing. His chest ached, his hands raw, his past no longer buried, but burned clean in the dust of the fight. Far off, coyotes sang. Their cries wound through the night like a hymn. And in the hush that followed, the story rooted itself in the earth. They say on nights when the wind blows hard across the plain, you can still see them, 3 women taller than men, and the stranger who stood beside them. Their shadows rise at sunset, guarding a ranch where justice did not fall, where the land kept its own. The showdown was written in blood and the legend in dust.